So here we are with this Kel-Tec Sub 2000 9mm, putting the M-Carbo trigger kit into it. So we're gonna go ahead and put this in and put it back together. Dude, these things are super handy to have in your shop for so many reasons. These are so cheap to find and pick up too. You can probably get them on the interwebs for like $1 or less. They're just EMT shears, but we pour little springs out of the package there, and that can go in the garbage. I want to say I was cool and actually hit the trash can there, but I didn't. I think it's on the floor. Oh, damn. Oh, well. But, putting it back together, we'll start with our hammer. Like I said, that's kind of how you want to have that set up. And you can take the pin and the bushing, squeeze that in there, and that will fall down right into there. I got that backwards. Like that. That's how you want it. You want the coils pointing up. My dumbass did not do that at first. So, yeah, go back in there. If you get that backwards, what you'll end up with is probably a situation where you get light strikes or light primer strikes or something from the hammer because there's not enough tension on it to get full force out of the spring. But you can push that up there with your finger there and take your sear and you'll stick that in its corresponding little hole here with its pin. Keep in mind that pin's going to want to walk out on you. I'm going to try and get this hammer. Oh, and the receiver wants to come sliding out, you jerk. But get that in there. And remember, the sear spring, that's how the guy looks like butter. Take that in there, and this again can be tricky too. This little spring is going to want to go flying on you, so make sure you retain it real good. When you put it back in, that little leg goes up underneath there, like so, and you can wrap it back around, and the leg will literally just stick right there. Like so. So the leg will stick out around this, and I know that this looks like this is going to be all kinds of interfering and cause problems, but that's exactly how that seats in there. It's not real complicated. The next thing we are going to do is we're going to take our trigger bar here and take the trigger and put it in the right way, facing forward, right? And then we can take our pin here and actually slide that up underneath there, and so you'll end up with your spring like this, and that pin, so you got the two pins here, right? Your trigger bar pin, and this is the pivot pin for the actual trigger itself. And that pivot pin, I can do this without launching springs or anything. I shall set this down just in case. But your pivot pin will fall into this little hole here, and then the trigger bar pin will be in this little recess so it can move back and forth here. So, put together align those two pins, get them in there, and you can drop your trigger bar down on top of that, and that's all she wrote. Just like that. So now we need to get our safety back in, and this is going to be fun. Actually, what I'll do is I'm going to pull this trigger bar and trigger back out, and then I'm going to put the safety in. Should have done that first, just for simplicity's sake. Remember, plunger in the spring, and it comes up through the back side here. Kind of get your hammer out of the way. Fingers, and you're going to want it to press that detent. You're going to want to push it back down inside that safety as far as you can and pop it back in. And so you have your safety sitting in there like so. Now we'll put our trigger and trigger bar back in. So we'll line our holes up. Put that back in there. So I want to put my pin back through here. And we're going to grab the barrel. But just to get this thing back together, we're going to want to put our rear sight back in here too. This little nipple that sticks out here, you can see that little guy, that faces towards the back of the gun. So this way here, so that it will function correctly. So you put your little tab on, standing up here. We'll stick this back in all the way. And again, I'm going to fold this gun up a little bit just because it's going to be easier to work with for me, I think. Get all that back in there. And now the real fun part is getting your other half of the receiver back on there. So we have to kind of line everything up, and like I said, this leg on the hammer spring is going to fold up. You know, it wants to fold up over this. So as you start getting things together, I haven't found a way to make sure it kind of stays down there yet. Sometimes it wants to hook, but as soon as you start putting it together, it pops back up and over. So we'll slide it back on, and I've never had to deal with that barb when we took it apart. Remember that little pin there had some barbs on it, and I've never had to quite put this back together. So I don't know if that's going to interfere with me or not. I've never seen that on one of these guns before. I don't know if it's something new that Kel-Tec has come up with, or if it's been around a while and I just hadn't been paying attention. I will say it can be difficult. Like I said, this whole process is going to be difficult here because you have to keep all this stuff lined up. Putting your mag release button in there and making sure it stays. Getting the safety to align because it's got hammer pressure putting on it. So align that, and I'll take my little pick here, make sure that's aligned. Start pushing down on it and see what I can come up with here. Come on. Ooh. Yeah, you fucking bitch. So, like I said, that hammer spring here decided to jump back over. So we'll see if we can't clamp that down. There we go. Hopefully it doesn't slip back over it. Get it back together. I'm gonna get this back together. There's no way I got that lucky that I got it first go, huh? No way. That sear leg is going to cause me some problems. I wonder if I can't push this from here. Kind of push it down. Nope, we're gonna have to wiggle her back off here. Yep, not quite. Let's see, third time might be a charm, huh? Just gotta be patient with them. These things will wear you out, man, putting them on and off. If you've got, you know, very little patience. First time I tried to do this, man, it just drove me mad. I was kicking and cursing and screaming trying to figure out what was going on, and I got pretty angry. Pins are all the way in. Not real sure what's not letting me line stuff up here. That's the other thing that'll aggravate you, because you can't see inside, and while you're doing this. By the time you get the this thing all put back together and clamshelled up here, you can't really tell. Let's see. So the front goes on there. Whoa, did we get it? I may have gotten that one. Yeah, maybe. So the rest of this here. Oh. Get that screw in there and see what we come up with. Maybe fighting something, but nope, I got it. Cool deal. Cool deal. When you put these screws in, man, if you feel like the plastic, if it's not clamping back down like it ought to, something's wrong and something's not aligned. So stop what you're doing. Make sure that mag button spring cut. Yeah, stop what you're doing and take it back apart and look and make sure everything's kind of lined up like it's supposed to. We got lucky that hammer spring stayed still. The sear leg gave us a little bit of trouble. That's because I didn't have it quite in that little pocket right. And you'll see, exactly where all this stuff's supposed to go. But yeah, if you shouldn't use the screws to force clamp everything into this gun. That's not how it works. It's not how any of this works. But let's see. I'm not good with the light one came down there. You don't have to tighten the shit out of these things, man. It's just hand tight's good enough, man. Like I said, you'll feel it stop. Realistically, you get to a certain point, and it's going to stop tightening, and it's just going to spin anyways. They make these fancy screw kits that are like all chrome or whatever, or all black, and they say, oh, they're better screws and this and that. And I'm like, I mean, how often are you really going to take this apart? I mean, you just need to field strip it just to clean it. There's not a whole lot of goo that can get inside of there, or even the spaces aren't even tight enough to justify most of that work, to be honest. But let's see, sight comes up. Does it fold? Yep, folds, locks. Release. Cool. I'll wait until I get the bolt and carry and all that stuff back in there before I dry fire this thing. So your little end plate screw there. Like I said, it kind of quasi threads on there. I think it's more just to streamline that look than anything. It doesn't really do a whole lot. But put our bolt back together. So you got two pieces there, and that's the top of the bolt. So it goes in like me. It's gonna stop, and what you're gonna have to do is stick your finger back in here and push the hammer down just a little bit so the bolt will slide over it. Sometimes you don't have to, but most of the time I've found that I have to do that. Charging handle just clips back in. You can push that forward, back, however, but it should be good. Operating, spring, recoil spring, whatever you want to call that. Sticks that down there. You got your stock. For this particular gentleman, he had it on that middle position, so I'm going to go ahead and put it back there on the middle position. Like so. Get that, so that's lined up. You get your little plunger, and that's the locks, the takedown lock. Like I said, you're going to get that under spring pressure. Yeah. Pin like that. So bolts in it, should be caught. Oh, let's not forget our C-clip for the safety, so it doesn't come flying out the other side. What I like to do is just so you hear that detent, so it clicked outside there, and that'll put the groove the C-clip rides in just about flush with it, like so. And it's really just kind of push it back in place. I damn near forgot that, so keep that in mind. Nothing real complicated on it. It just slides in, and that just keeps it from popping out the other end there. It's just a groove that it rides in there. It's pretty easy. Shouldn't cause any issues. So, yep. Hold trigger back. Cycle. Disconnects. Bang. So, let's make sure the safety works. Safety, yep, disconnects it. Cool. That's it. Like I said, the only other thing is I'm going to put the sight back on here. Unless you're replacing the sight or have the need to put a, you're going to put the 5/8 24 thread pattern suppressor on here, and I wouldn't mess taking this off at all. Just because putting it back on is a pain in the butt to make sure that it's aligned, and if you get it off, it screws your windage and shit. It can be a pain in the ass, and I did it just to show you how it comes apart. But realistically, I wouldn't mess with this. You're gonna get it on here, somewhere about there, maybe one more full rotation. Let's see, it stops there. Come back. I'll probably just enough to get that nut on. Usually you're spending time trying to get your nut off, but this time we're going to spend some time getting it on. Like I said, it's just a 3/4 on this particular model. This sight there's several different ways they've attached these sights, I've noticed, but this is how this particular one comes off, and then the thread protector will go on there, like so. And that's about right. So the thread protector comes just to the end of the barrel nut there. So now it's a matter of just aligning this, getting some thread locker down on there so it doesn't wiggle loose. I don't thread lock this. It doesn't have any thread lock in the factory, so I'm not going to put it back on there. But yeah, that's really all there is to it. We got lucky with this going back together. Man, usually you have to fight the shit out of them to get them back in there. But yeah, replaced hammer spring, sear spring, and trigger return spring. It makes it for a little bit lighter pull. It is what it is. I don't see personally the point in putting a whole bunch of money into these guns. I mean, they're just a little backpack camp type rifle, man. They're not some kind of super cool tactical carbine or whatever, but they're still cool little guns. A lot of fun. Plenty of parts out there. You can do all kinds of stuff. Thanks for watching. Give me a like, subscribe, share me around, and let me know what you think. Put some comments down there. Like I said, I usually, whatever comes to the shop, I try to run on, and this seems like something cool I hadn't done before, or at least hadn't shown you guys before. I've done plenty of these things. Same thing, man. It's always some kind of trigger kit, or replacing, putting the metal handguards on. They want the shiny screws, or the sight. There's some replacement sights back here for this that have adjustments on them. Man, there's all kinds of stuff for these things. It's pretty good aftermarket sport. But